h of x is the square root of x squared plus x minus x. This is going to be amazing. Is everyone ready? Keep your hands inside the vehicle at all times. What rule is this going to violate? Square root of a negative number. So we set the radicand to be not 0, greater than or equal to 0. We have what is called a polynomial inequality. These are not solved as nicely as your linear inequalities where you just undo the linear. For these guys, you get to, well, there's actually like several steps. So the first one is to solve the related equation. So we ignore the inequality for right now. We write it as an equal sign. How does x squared plus x minus 6 factor? Dun, dun, dun.
The quantity of x plus 3 times the quantity of x minus 2.
Very good.
And you set both of them to 0?
Yep, so if you set x plus 3 to 0, what do you get?
Negative 3.
And if you set negative 2, x minus 2 equal to 0?
2.
Is anyone having flashbacks of Math 1200? I'm loving it. So that's step 1, solve the related equation. Steps 2, 3, and 4 all deal with the number line. Step 2, draw a number line and separate it into sections using the numbers from step 1. So by putting those two numbers on the number line, I've created 3 sections. The first section are all numbers to the left of negative 2, smaller than negative 2. Actually, negative 3. The middle section are all numbers between negative 3 and positive 2. And the last section are all numbers bigger than 2. How's everyone so far? Great to be here. Step 3, pick a number from each section. So give me a number that's less than negative 3. Negative 4. Between negative 3 and 2.
0.
Bigger than 2.
30.
What you're going to do with those 3 numbers in orange is you're going to put them into x squared plus x minus 6. You do not care what the value is. You only care about the sign. So, for instance, we'll have negative 4 quantity squared plus a negative 4 minus 6. And you do the same thing for 0 and the same thing for 3. If you want to, you can use your table command on your calculator. That's an X there, not an alpha. We're not going Greek yet. Please be careful, especially when you have negatives involved, to use parentheses. Does negative 4 give you a positive or a negative number?
Positive 6.
And 0?
Negative.
And 3?
Positive. So would you put the parentheses going towards the negative and then shade in, reshading on these number lines, or are we just writing down what the domains are?
We're just writing what the domains are, but typically we write our answer in interval notation. So if they did want a graph notation, yeah, you would just shade.
Okay.
So let's go back to to the original problem here. We have greater than or equal to 0. Do we want the positives or the negatives? Positives, so that's this section here and this section here. Once step 3 is done, you don't care about those test numbers anymore. So I would suggest while you're doing the problem, use a different color. Also use a different symbol. Notice I use tick marks for our numbers we got from step 1, and I use dots for our test numbers. So this first shaded region here, how far left does it go? Negative infinity. And how far right does it go? Do I include the negative 3? Why?
Because the greatest value being negative.
No, because there's an equal sign. So because there's an equal sign in your inequality, we'll include it. Since these are disjoint, that's where we need a union symbol. And what's the smallest number in this section? Up to? Do I include the 2? Yep. Correct. So if you picked negative 10 billion, it would still give you a positive. Do not assume that your signs will alternate. They could repeat. So you could have plus, plus, minus. Just be careful. All right. Let's do 2 more. We're not going to have clouds in this. I'm sorry. I know. D. Oh, that should have been J of X. I'm so sorry. We normally don't call functions I. We skip right over to J. Suppose J of X is 7x to the 9th plus 10x cubed minus 5x squared. What do you think the domain is?
Do we take out x to the second?
You can. It won't do anything though. Yeah, are there any fractions? Are there any radicals? Are there any of the third thing that we don't have yet? Say no. No. So is there anything to worry about? What's the domain? Are there any fractions? Are there any radicals? No, you can't change that. You don't know what? Is there anything to worry about? This list here is what you have to worry about. So what's the domain? Well, what is the domain? If there's nothing to worry about, can you plug in anything you want for x? So what's the domain? Yeah, all reals. What type of function is this? It's a polynomial. The domain of any polynomial is all real numbers. So in 1480, we always start with our polynomials because they are the easy ones. And then we go on to the more exciting ones. The ones that ruin it for everyone else. Good times. Polynomial means many terms. E. Let's see. 8x plus 5 over the square root of 7x minus 9. Why? Dun dun dun. What rules can be violated? Both of our given rules. We have a fraction, so we have a possible division by 0. We have a radical, a square root, namely, so we have a possible square root of a negative number. Well, notice the square root is in the denominator. So this one says the denominator can't be 0. This one says the radicand can't be negative. So since it's in the denominator, it can't be 0, it can't be negative, so what must it be? Yeah, it must be positive, greater than 0. So this is a modification of our second one. Instead of greater than or equal to, we're just doing greater than 0. We can't have equal to 0 because then we'll have a division by 0, and that's bad. So does that ax plus 5 do anything? No. Just hangs out. It does not affect the domain. So how would we solve for x in part E? You would add 9 and? Good. So your domain is all values of x that are greater than 9/7. What is this in interval notation? Oh. Good.
How come we wouldn't include that?
Because if we had 9/7 put in for x, we would get a 0 downstairs. Because 7 times 9/7 minus 9 is 0. And then the square root of 0 is 0, so then you're dividing by 0. The other reason is, since it's strict inequality, there's no equal sign, so you get a parenthesis.